in the case of Kilmar Abrego, it's a young kid who had come to the United States from El Salvador asking for asylum. The government did not provide him asylum, but an immigration judge gave him an order of protection from deportation to El Salvador. So the judge said, okay, we cannot give you asylum, but we are not going to allow for the government to deport you. So I'm giving you an order that says that ICE cannot deport you to El Salvador. Well, he's been living with that order for many years, and then the government ICE comes and grabs him and deports him back to El Salvador and puts him in a maximum security prison by mistake. And when the lawyers take this case to court, to federal court, the trial attorneys, the government lawyers say, we made a mistake. Sorry, we made a mistake. So a judge says, okay, so you need to correct your mistake, so bring this person back to the United States. And the government says, no, we cannot do that. We already deported him. He can't come back. Well, that's not true. It's a lie. But the government has appealed this decision to the Fourth Circuit. And the Fourth Circuit told the government yesterday that they, in fact, has to bring this man back. So instead of bringing this man back, and the deadline was today, the government has appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is currently reviewing this issue. And in the meantime, they will not bring back Kilmar Abrego. We have to wait for the decision of the Supreme Court. So that's what is going on in that case. And I believe that this was a mistake and that the government has an obligation to correct the mistakes. However, this take brings me to the third news of the day. However, everything is on hold. Everything can happen because we just received a decision of the Supreme Court on the case of the deportations under that Foreign Enemies Act. And I still believe that Kilmar Abrego will return, but this decision has been tremendously wrong from the Supreme Court. So hold on, because I'm going to explain to you what happened. A couple of weeks ago, the government invoked a very old law, and very, very, very old law, that says that in times of war, the United States may deport enemies in this war, enemies that are foreign outside of the United States expeditiously. Expeditiously means without giving them the normal process, okay? Because in times of war, you do in an emergency situation, you can do emergency things. Well, when they invoked this law, they detained 280 people, and in one night, they deported all of them to El Salvador, even if they weren't from El Salvador, because most of them were Venezuelans. And they accused them of being members of Tren de Aragua, and they deported them all to El Salvador and put them in this maximum security prison called Secot. And so the lawyers filed lawsuit against this decision. The first judge who saw this complaint stopped the government from continuing with using this law to deport people the way they were doing it. And the second, the government appealed, and they ended up in the Supreme Court. So now the Supreme Court has issued a decision, and the decision is horrible. The decision says that the government, in fact, has the right to apply this Foreign Enemies Act law and deport people if they believe they are enemies in times of war. Now, the only one good thing that this decision says is that they can use the law, but they cannot deport people without notifying them why they're being considered foreign enemies and without giving them an opportunity to defend themselves. So they no longer will be able to just detain someone, put them in a plane, and send them to another country. That cannot happen again. So what the Supreme Court is saying, yes, the law exists and you can use it, but you cannot deport people in one day. You're going to have to first notify them what you're accusing them for, and then you have to give them a reasonable time to file habeas. File habeas is go to federal court and explain why, in your opinion, the government is wrong and you are not an alien enemy. Now, sounds good, right? Sounds like, okay, so it's not all for the government, but the reality is that most of these immigrants that the government is accusing are poor people. They are immigrants. They are underserved. They are living not in the best conditions. So how many of them will have the opportunity to hire a lawyer? How expensive will it be to go to federal court? Some of them will be able to obtain free lawyers from different civil organizations, but all of them will not be able. And the other thing is, what is a reasonable time? The Supreme Court did not say what is a reasonable time. Of course, for the government, one day may be a reasonable time. But for the immigrants, it takes several days to be able to find a lawyer and to get the lawyer to prepare everything to file in federal court. So all I can say is I believe that the Supreme Court decision is wrong. 6 justices were in support of this decision. 3 dissented. There was a partial dissent too. All of the justices agreed that nobody should be deported without an opportunity to defend themselves, especially from terrible accusations as being terrorists. But I think this time the Supreme Court got it wrong, and time will be the only way to tell. Many times the Supreme Court has reversed itself, and I think this is one of those situations in which sometime in the future we will see that they made a mistake. So it's really sad, but it's what's going on. So after this decision, what is going to happen to Kilmar Abrego? I don't know. I still think that the Supreme Court should have the guts to tell the president, you made a mistake, you fix it, because we are the United States and we should be able to fix our mistakes.